Good evening, everybody. We're going live this evening in conversation, really excitingly, with the incredible actor, entrepreneur, activist, producer, Nikki Reed. And I'm hoping to go live with her really shortly. So if you could bear with me, I'm going to send her the request. This is always the awkward bit at the beginning, isn't it? Now. And hopefully she
Hi.
I'm so sorry. Hi. I caused such a panic that earlier by saying I thought we were going live.
No worries.
Told 7, but it's such a pleasure to meet you now.
Nice
and thank
to meet you.
so much for giving up your time to the Outnet this evening on International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day to you first of all.
Happy International Women's Day to you too. Thank you for having me. You know I'm a huge fan, and I also love the topic and the questions and all the things you want to chat about.
Oh,
so
I really hope that it's going to be great, because all the things I wanted to ask you about, you are literally the queen of. So I'm going to kick off by saying that it's really hard to, I don't want to pigeonhole you, but to also kind of describe what a multi-hyphenate, multi-talented person you are, from a writer, an actor, a producer, a singer, a songwriter, an entrepreneur. You have a sustainable jewelry business. How do you have enough hours in the day?
That's very sweet of you. I don't. I'm figuring out the juggle and the balance like everybody else, and this new normal that we're all in. You know, I'm very fortunate. I've had a long career. It's taken many forms, and I definitely haven't been shy about trying new things, finding things that I'm passionate about and exploring them with all of my heart and soul. So yeah, I've done quite a few things, and I found myself here. And the interesting thing is that I do find that they all kind of overlap in a bit. You know, I've been asked, like, do I feel like I've left one career for another? And in a weird way, I kind of feel like there's just such a strong overlap, and I'm more of an artist now and more creatively fulfilled now than I was even 10 years ago. I prefer being behind the camera. I like it. I prefer, creativity for me isn't just, there isn't just one aspect to creativity. I feel like numbers are also a form of creativity, and logistics and operations, and building product pages on the back end of my website, and photographing all the product, and designing and sketching, and there's so many aspects to creativity. And I was definitely scared to transition out of the only thing I'd ever known.
Well, you are lucky that you have all these talents to actually apply to all of these different disciplines, because not everyone maybe could have done so with so much success. But doing my sort of research about you before this, the one word that I would say that struck me was authentic, and your authenticity about the projects that you take on. So how do you choose the work? Has it got to speak to your heart, or is it about the financial profit, or is it what is it that sort of draws you to what your project you're next going to take on?
Thank you for that. I not to segue into something else, but I'll just say that I was told for many years, oh my gosh, Moose, come here. Come here.
I've hidden my children and my dogs and my cats.
Moose is not my, well, kind of my child.
Who is that?
This little dude is staying with us for, who knows, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year, maybe forever, because I would love that. This is Moose. Moose looks like a little Ewok gremlin.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was told he might just stand like this for the entire interview. But
that's fine. My dog Dolly, she hugs me when she sort of like got in there, and you sort of pinned back. So if she makes an appearance, we'll have a canine company for the interview. Moose looks divine.
He's divine. You might need to see more of a face. Let me switch that tag around.
Is he camera shy?
That would be no.
Oh, he's got such a characterful face.
He's so funny. He's the best. So anyway, yeah, hang right there, buddy. I was told for a long time that I wouldn't be able to build a brand if I didn't kind of take part in this like selfie driven, moose, you know, like here's me all the time. Here's what I'm eating. Here's what I look like. Me. And, you know, that just wasn't a part of my brand. And I was trying to figure out the balance of how do I, you know, what I use social media for and what I consider brand building is building a message and not just sharing about yourself, but sharing the things that you see, the things that you love, the art that you find, the songs that you listen to, the books that you read, the women that inspire you. And, you know, I was told that it would be impossible. And, you know, that, you know, clickbait was really important and likes and here's what gets the most traction. And it's true. There were many years where, you know, I focused on things like carbon pricing, for example, on my social media, which is like the least sexy topic imaginable, you know? And it's true that there tend to be less viewers on topics like carbon pricing than there are on, you know, bikini photos and things.
Maybe depressingly so, but I think you've obviously shown people that over time that there is a different way of going about it. And I saw that you've been off grid, so you are obviously practicing what you preach as well. Tell me, what was that like? Because in the UK, we're still in lockdown, and we have been, well, we were just before Christmas, then we were going to be out for Christmas, and then we're back in again. And we've been in lockdown now since before Christmas. And so your phone and things that maybe previously wouldn't have been so interested in suddenly is this gateway to making these connections. And so having these conversations once a week has been such a sort of spiritual nourishment for me to see someone outside of my own family and make those sort of connections. But you obviously have you can resist the temptation of your phone and put it away and put it down, can you?
Again, you know, I'm in the same boat, you know, as you and everybody else. I'm trying to figure out how to work and run a company, and that you're tethered to your devices. I mean, it's just, I think as society puts in boundaries that will cater to a more balanced lifestyle, maybe we'll all be able to take part in that. And for now, you know, you're just expected, especially as a business owner, to be on call 24/7 and catching up on emails the night before. So maybe you can not wake up at, you know, 4:30 in the morning to play catch up, and maybe you'll stay in bed working until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And, you know, I'm in the juggle too. But one thing I try to instill from the top down, at least in our company, is, you know, reminding everybody that we have to take time to be human beings. That includes me, that includes my employees. And also, we don't need to be so connected at every given moment with surface level connection and communication. Like, I prefer deeper, longer, as opposed to quick check-ins and quick, like, my friends and my family all know, if you're close enough to know this about me, then you're close, because I'll say that nobody ever texts me, hi, hey, what's up? Though, because I don't, that type of communication just doesn't, I want to be able to, and especially as a mom, I want to teach my daughter to, it's okay to go a few months without speaking to somebody. And then when you do, make it meaningful. Pick up the phone and call. Let's not stare down at our phone and have 9,000 check-ins a day with everybody, like, hey, what's up? Or, whoa, it's not raining today. That's cool. You know, I think the one thing that we've all learned from this year is that connection is everything. Community is everything. And meaningful is everything. I mean, that's what we've got on this planet. Like, at the end of the day, that's all we've got are our memories and how we spent our time and where we put our energy. And I don't want my energy going into a phone. You're
so right. You're also, you know, your health is your wealth, and we've really learnt that. And I have really cherished this sort of forced pause in a way, and to kind of re-evaluate certainly things in my family life, and just simple things like sitting down as a family every night for the last year has been truly lovely. So I guess that answers the question, really, because I was going to ask you about, it's been a hell of a year and we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. What have you taken from this that you would like to do, that you would carry on in a hopefully post-COVID world, that you will carry on as a sort of practice and way of living?
I mean, well, not to, focus on only the positive when there's been a lot of sadness.
Yeah, of course, not to diminish
negativity. Yeah, I don't want to diminish that at all. But if we can just take a moment to focus on the positive, because that's important too. I'll say that I think that this year gave a lot of perspective to a lot of people. And I also think it brought out the best and the worst in people. And I think in many ways, we're going to look back at this time and say this forced pause, it had tremendous benefits. For example, like, businesses had a chance to reevaluate how they operate and how they want to source and what direction they want to go in as a company. I think we've realized that there are better ways to be human and participate in this sort of energetic exchange that we have with the world. But then I'll also say that, just as someone who, runs a company, I can see on the other side of things how and where people put their energy in a digital sense. And so I think there's been a lot more, in general, living on phones, social media, sort of that kind of energetic disruption. And I know that everybody has different feelings on 5G and that whole rabbit hole, and I'm not going down that, but I will say that holding a phone 24 hours a day does disrupt you energetically. It does. And when we're living in other people's lives and we're living in what we think looks better on the other side of a screen, that disrupts who we are. So I still think we're going to look back in 5 years, in 10 years, when humanity has a better grasp on what's going on. I think we're going to look back at this time still and say, oh man, I could have taken a moment to spend my time on walks and put this away and really be present, but I was so wound up and so unable to be present. Like, these are times where there are fathers who haven't been able to sit at a dinner table with their family in years, who now, that is one positive that's come out of this. There are whole families, that are able to spend dinners together, like you mentioned, and yet we still don't have those energetic boundaries put in place and the ability to really be present, because we're always thinking about the next thing and how to catch up on work and, what post we're going to do or what our friends are. And so, I think it's like what you said about how we're all in the same boat. I mean, different boats, but same storm. We are all navigating this together. There are more challenges for some than others, more tragedy for some than others. For some people, this has been a really positive experience. For some people, this has been a horrendous experience. And the bottom line is, it's disrupted and changed our flow. And for that, we have to kind of, I think, step back and recognize what we can learn from it.
Absolutely. So you were talking about business leaders and International Women's Day. You are a successful business leader and obviously a woman as well. Tell us a little bit about the story of your brand and how it came about and what it represents to you.
Sure. So Bayou was kind of born out of this desire to find things that I couldn't find in the marketplace when I was pregnant. I've always been a doer, and it's really hard for me to sit still. And I was newly pregnant, and I was looking for all the things that I think, women start to look for or think about. I've always been very conscious about what I put in my body, but am I thinking about what I put on my body? And looking for things like, I don't know, organic underwear, or like what chemicals are used to grow our clothing, and all the things that I wish we were taught as women to maybe think about or be conscious of prior to growing a human in our bodies. But anyway, so I decided to create things that I couldn't find at that time. And to me, that was initially in the apothecary space and creating multi-purpose products. So sustainable for me has always meant creating one product that serves many different purposes. You know, I think you can produce in the most sustainable way possible. I think you can be conscious of materials that are used, where you produce, how you produce, but at the end of the day, less is the only way we're actually going to move forward. It's about less. And so even, you know, now that we're in the fine jewelry space, primarily, I
went online earlier and I tried to pretend I was getting engaged again, even though I've been married for 16 years. I thought, oh, I could like design my own ring, and what would it look like? It's so clever. It's so clever how you can personalize it, and each of the pieces of the jewelry really feel like sort of little talisman, significant pieces that, you know, have real symbolism for whoever the wearer is. They're really beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
you've managed to, I think sometimes the mistake also people make that's quite outdated is that feeling that if something is sustainable and worthy, it's going to potentially be plain and not as beautiful. But again, you've challenged that misconception with all of your designs, haven't you?
Well, I wanted to kind of create a world where we could shatter the misconception that sustainable or recycled meant, you know, used in quotations, because, you know, I think for the longest time we've just been accustomed to thinking that everything sustainable is made from like hemp or like woven grass, and and there are some beautiful products in that space, but I think it's important to speak to a wider demographic, and there are people who you know, don't want to compromise in terms of luxury for sustainability. And I just feel like when you design with beauty in mind, the message, while it's equally important, I think that the message becomes a bonus as opposed to leading with message and mission. That's just been, you know, kind of my personal experience with, you know, somebody might go out and purchase a sustainable product once to say that they did it, but if they don't really love what they're purchasing, they're not going to go back again and make that a part of their lifestyle. And the interesting thing about working in the engagement ring space is that engagement rings are they're not only such a talking point and a conversation starter, but they're also a way to kind of, I think, like solidify that love and that union with your own moral compass of who you are and what you care about, you know? And people care. They care about the hands that touch, you know, the products that they're wearing. They care about the story. They care about the energy that goes into that and making sure that that is good, pure, honest, transparent energy. And I think, you know, there's no better place to really like hone in on the importance of sustainability than in the space of love.
Yeah. So we're obviously a multi-brand luxury fashion retailer, and we're stocking past season beautiful clothes. And so I guess we have on some level a claim to be part of that circular economy, extending the life of the garment. And we have an incredible buying team who really select the products that we are selling to our customers to make sure that they are the best of the best. They're a curated edit. But we wrestle with ourselves because we want to be able to talk with more authority on sustainability. And so we wrestle with ourselves because you have that thing as a retailer that you obviously want to sell more. But I think the answer that we've come to is that we would rather sell less but better, and to encourage women to think about clothes that spark joy in them, that make you feel fabulous when you're wearing them, that you know that you're going to cherish and love for always and have a place in your wardrobe. So what pieces do you have in your wardrobe that make you feel amazing when you put them on? It could be like, I don't know, a cashmere jumper that you just feels like it's giving you a hug, or It could be, I don't know, some sort of incredible glam gown that if you put on, you just feel amazingly like $1 million when you wear it. What pieces do you have that you really love?
You know, I went through this recently, and I'll share more soon at a later date, but I was due to like some crazy unforeseen home construction and stuff like that. I had to move all of our stuff into storage overnight, and I had to take out my like top 10, 10, 15 things that would stay with me for, I don't know, the next week, month, year, who knows. And it's interesting when you work in the fashion space and you have to make a decision like that,
right?
Too. And by the way, just to like comment on what you said, I know that moral dilemma. I live with that moral dilemma too. I'm at the end of the day, I talk about sustainability. I believe in that world for us and for our children. It's part of my life. It's part of our household. But I still operate a business that produces product. So, I think just to like comment on that really quickly, the world will people will always buy things. So it's better to be on the right side of things and producing in a way that's, conscious production. I think that that's really important to provide. Instead of saying I don't want to be a part of the conversation at all, how about bring something to the table that's valuable, that's a better way of doing things. So I love that you guys are stocking past collections and past seasons, because I think that that's going to be a huge shift in the fashion industry coming up. It used to be this like the seasonal calendar, right? Where like just when that last collection finished, you're gearing up to launch the next and blah, 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 blah. And with our company, I've always said, I don't want to design around collections and seasons like that, seasonal trends, because it's not a sustainable model for the planet and also for a company and also for your own health and wellness and just the catch up. But I was told that would be a really bad idea to not produce around seasonal trends, but it's, proven to be all right. So I think you just.
So what were your pieces that you reached for then? What have you got that you can only wear for the next few weeks?
So, I mean, basically I'm wearing it. Basically, this is it.
Very lovely, beautiful tones that blend.
I try to stick with like layering pieces and neutral pieces so that everything can have, a couple of different lives. I like to, my challenge within myself is like, how can I take one article of clothing and then transform it into 10 different looks. I try to do that on red carpets and for events and also just for life. So I have a belt from my grandmother.
Oh, that's lovely.
Let's see, these pants are actually one of my favorites. It was a brand name to an anemone, but they just changed to a Nemos. So, and then I do have my like 5 pieces of Bayou jewelry that just stay on all the time. I don't think I've taken these guys off. And
they're gorgeous.
Yeah, I haven't taken off in probably 3 years or 4 years now. They just sleep with me. And obviously I have, these guys. But I like to just layer and keep everything, pretty simple and pretty cozy. I'm a cozy. I like to go with cozy chic, I guess.
Cozy chic is where it's at this year. And you're obviously famously vegan, and we've met Moose, and I know that you have a lot of other furry and feathered friends I've seen on your Instagram account. Do you apply that into the clothes that you wear? Would you wear sort of vegan leather, I think they call it now? We've got brands like
Nanushka. You want to talk about this.
Stock, and then we've got brands like Stella McCartney, who obviously has been banging the drum for sustainability for a long time, but also manages to make her clothes really sort of current and contemporary and beautifully made. Is those sort of brands that you would be interested in looking at, or do you stick to your own brand always?
I love Nanushka. I love Stella. So I like that you brought up the word vegan, because I want to talk about that for a
Okay.
second. I haven't actually had a moment to really dive into this, but I wanted to, so let's do it here.
Okay.
So I don't use any labels.
Right.
So I'm not vegan, but I am plant-based,
Okay.
because and I'll just share what that means to me. So I don't eat meat and I don't eat dairy. But I spent the better part of my, I would say, early 20s, right when I discovered the health benefits of not eating meat and what that did for me personally. I ran around, crusading with my vegan flag, and I wanted everything vegan, and I wanted to talk about how being vegan was the way. And, like most young people, I was really passionate and I wanted to channel my passion somewhere. And then I grew up a little bit and I realized that human beings live in the gray. Every environmentalist I know is still flying on airplanes to go talk on panels. Every conservationist is still using toilet paper to wipe their butts.
Yep.
And so what I started to realize is that when we exist in these worlds that are so polarized and we say, I'm this and you need to be this, or you're that and I'll never get to be that, we start to create a divide. And it's funny because what I call it is baby activism. So that was my baby activist self that was like, vegan, and I'm not wearing leather and I'm not doing this or not doing that. And then I realized a lot of the faux leather products that are being made are actually terrible for the environment. So I took a step back and I was like, do I want to be a part of the creation and consumption of more PVC, more environmental degradation, more all in the name of being vegan? Or do I want to take a step back and go, wait a second, it's actually great for me to wear my grandmother's leather belt. It's actually way better for me to wear that than it is for me to go out there and purchase brand new vegan leather all the time. And it's actually great for me to be plant-based, but if that means that I eat honey, or if that means that my chickens, who are so super happy and healthy, and there's no rooster there, produce eggs, and those eggs are a part of our household, that's great too. It's about harmony. It's about creating a space for people to do better, but want to do better, not just polarizing. I don't eat eggs, by the way, because I'm allergic, but I'm just giving examples of a space.
I know exactly what you mean. And I think that lesson and that prism of which you're approaching could be applied to almost everything, and the world would be a better place, because we are such a polarized, politically, religiously, educationally, disparity of wealth, etc. There is so much, and that middle ground where you're not trying to do good for the sake of it, you're trying to find a path that can be trod in the long run and that takes everybody along on the journey with you, rather than just
activism is about bridging
voice.
gaps. That's at the end of the day, activism has to be about bridging gaps. It has to be about building a path towards togetherness, not separating. Otherwise, we're not going to get anything done. And at the end, and also, like, holistic, this is like a whole other topic, but holistic land management and healthy soil and regenerative farming depends on the building of those bridges. It does. And the world is always going to eat meat. You're never going to have 100% of a global population doing the same thing. And so we might as well create a space for people to just do things differently, but do things better in the best way that they can. I'm all for, like, deconstructing the current factory farming infrastructure. I'm all for that, because our current, the state in which we currently produce meat is awful. But I'm also all for supporting local farmers, even if that means that they produce meat, if they're doing it in a way that's better than the system we currently have in place. We have to support other people and their differences. And so, yes, I don't eat meat, and I don't eat dairy, but I also have so many friends who do, and so many friends in the regenerative farming space. And I believe that if we all work together, we create a better space for a better outcome for everyone.
Amen to that, Nikki. So I wanted
Sorry, that
to
was
ask
really
you-
long-winded.
I wanted to ask you a little bit quickly, because I realised I'm sort of like taking up so much of your day, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about your relationship with Catherine Hardwicke, having written 13 with her, and then her directing you in the Twilight Saga films, and whether or not she was sort of like someone who was like a mentor to you or an important figure, and if you have any kind of like plans to ever work together again.
Catherine's amazing, and you know, there's been like many versions of this story told over the years by different people. So here it is, you know, from me. I met Catherine when I was 5 or 6 years old. She dated my father for a couple of years. But interestingly enough, during that time, we actually weren't close. It was a time when, you know, my parents were separated and my dad was exploring a new career. And so they were, you know, they had their life together. But we had a bond and we had a connection, and we became close after they broke up. So we became close because my mom actually continued cutting her hair.
Oh.
My mom was a hairdresser and continued cutting her hair. And so I became close with Catherine when I was, I don't know, a young teen, you know, 11, 12, 13. We really developed, I think that was like a sisterly bond, because, you know, like all teenagers, you think everybody's cool except your parents.
Of course, of
And
course.
so, that was, you know, how I became close with her. And we took some time over a Christmas break holiday to write a little movie together that changed both of our lives forever. And she's very much a mentor of mine, and somebody who I'll always, you know, feel inspired by. And my whole trajectory of my life changed because of that film.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask you as well
woman.
about the trajectory of your life around being part of the Twilight films. That it's such a sort of seminal group of films for sort of people, often sort of, you know, people coming of age children. I know my 12-year-old daughter loved the books, loved the films, really sort of felt affinity with the, you know, this sort of sense of otherness and discovering who you are through, you know, within the films. I wasn't going to ask you about the films or the experience of that. I was going to ask you about what it must be like to be part of that sort of bubble of fame, and just because of what you were talking about, the sort of digital element on your phone, and to have that sort of level of global fame, but also the, I'm guessing, nice side of it in some ways, in terms of the fans and the people invested in you, and the responsibility, I guess, that comes with that, and how that sits with you.
Those are so many questions in one.
I know, sorry.
No, I wanna go. There's so many layers to that. So I, like the rest of the world, watched Meghan and Harry last night with Oprah. And I also, a few weeks ago, watched that Free Britney documentary. And
so we haven't had them in the UK, the Free Britney yet. And the Meghan and Oprah's on in about an hour's time in the UK. So we've seen snippets of it, but we haven't seen the full.
Okay, so
full,
I won't.
Yeah.
I won't.
I think we've probably seen all the spoilers.
Give away all the. Okay, yeah, you know. But I will say, you know, we're entering into a really interesting time where people get to share their own stories now. And for a long time, I think the media dictated that. And I'll say that, you know, I was going on a walk with a friend of mine the other day, and she said, "Are you ever going to tell your story?" And I said, "No, you know, I don't think that I am at this point, because I don't," and she meant that in as it relates to like how the media has portrayed different people over the years versus like your version of a truth or whatever. And I said, "No, I don't know that I am, because I don't feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm in a place in my life now where that's not something that I need or crave to like go out and you know, I'm in a very gentle place in my life, and I don't feel like I need to like rehash, you know, my 18-year-old, you know, like issues with the press or something, you know. But what that did is that like it sparked something inside of me where I've been thinking about that a lot actually. And you know, I played from a very young age very outrageous, like promiscuous characters. My character in 13, even though that was not the character that was based on me, that was based on someone else, I played that character, and so I was then associated with that character. Funny enough, they thought that like my, you know, even at the time, just talking about typecasting, I didn't look innocent enough to play myself, even if I had, you know, if that had even been an opportunity, which it wasn't, because Evan was the most perfect person for that role. But I still remember people like comments and chatter behind the scenes going, you don't look innocent enough to even play
What
a
does
character
that even
that's based on
mean
you.
to a young
Well, I think that people
teen?
associate,
Like, do you know what I mean,
like,
though? That what that must do to your own,
yeah, to a child, and
yeah,
then
to your sense of
travel
self.
around, yeah, and then traveling around the world and being sort of associated with like this bad girl thing because of that film, and then having the press look at you in that way. And then I went on to play, I had a few like sort of more sweet and innocent roles, like Kathy Alva in Lords of Dogtown and the OC, and some sweet roles. But then, you know, cut to the Twilight Saga, and again I played the character that kind of went against like the conventional love story. You know, I was the character who didn't want the two, you know, main characters to find their love together. And you know, that was again reflected in the press. And I'll never forget, without calling anybody out, I'll never forget, like there were major bloggers, and do you mind if I talk about this for a second?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I find it really,
Okay.
I'm really interested, because I just think, well, you know, yeah, I'm really interested because I think that, you know, women, it's hard enough as it is to go through puberty without doing it as you did, in the full glare of the press making pretty wild assumptions about you. So I find it really interesting. If you don't mind talking about it, that's great.
Yeah, there were major bloggers that would write words across my head. You know, I was just a teenager, and they would write like the nastiest words and labels across my head and draw, you know, totally inappropriate, disgusting things coming out of my mouth, implying that I had had like sexual relationships with people that I hadn't. And I remember like the trauma of that being carried into my adult life, and never addressing that head on, and just letting that be a thing. And I remember writing to some of those bloggers like, hey, I'm a human being, and this really hurts my feelings. And some of those bloggers actually went out and then exposed that and embarrassed me even more. And I haven't ever shared this, but I was walking with my husband yesterday, and I was like, you know, I found myself zoning out for like 5 minutes, and I looked up at him and I said, I'm feeling like I want to write something. And here's the thing that I was thinking about writing, which is, let's move on from, like, I understand that it's very relevant right now to talk about how the press has labeled and categorized women for a long time. And I am so damn proud of the women who are coming out right now and saying, hey, I'm going to tell my story. I think that's amazing. But also, I think that we have a societal responsibility to address our own relationship that we have with freedom of speech, and redefine that in a sense. Because now, forget the bloggers, forget the websites, forget those people, because those people can all be called out now. Imagine being a girl in high school now. This is what plagues me and pains my heart. Imagine being a girl in high school now, and all your classmates and high schoolers, and you know, whatever grade you're in, maybe you're in college, maybe you're in your, you know, young professional career, but any person with a following now still has that power. And these are civilians, these are women, and that's why on International Women's Day, I think it's so important that we talk about this, because women tear other women down, and they do it on their own personal blogs, their own personal Instagrams. And we have to change the narrative, because the press thing is done, and we're addressing that in a societal sense. Now we need to address our own responsibility as people and how we conduct ourselves and how we talk about other women and treat other women, because that is the next phase of, you know, suicide rates are going up, depression is going up. I don't know how these kids are, and I don't even know, out of the, you know, thousands of people that are watching right now, how many of them are kids and how many of them can relate to what I'm saying. But I just have to tell all you guys, like, the things that feel so big and heavy to you right now, they will pass. And if there are people who are out there being negative about you and saying negative things, or saying, you know, perpetuating falsehoods, as Megan said last night, that you know, that was such a powerful quote. Those falsehoods will eventually, truth will be told. And we will change who we are as a society at the end of the day, because light prevails and the truth comes out. And I have so much respect for those women who are, you know, who have, because I can relate, obviously on a micro scale. I'm not Megan and Harry, and it's just a micro scale, but it really spoke to me. And what it really made me feel passionate about talking about was how we are not addressing on a societal level how people are exercising their right to freedom of speech and using it in a way to bully and degrade people. And young people can't handle this. Adults can barely handle this. You know, anyway, sorry, that was my
you were so right on so many levels. The sort of art of kindness has been forgotten, and that's, you know, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Like, very basic manners and treating people with compassion is, because of this polarized world that we were talking about earlier, I think that people feel that they are given some sort of right to always express what their view is, often without any of the facts. And we're all guilty of it, whether or not we're on, you know, that sidebar of shame and clicking on some sort of inane story, or, like, you know, being party to that clickbait, or gossiping with your girlfriends about something that you think it doesn't matter, but it does. And if you wouldn't say it to someone's face, then don't say it at all. I think that, you know, you say it's been in a microcosm, but I think that you're, you know, heroic to have, you know, come through with what seems like such a sort of solid set of values and be such an authentic person, having had to face growing up in the full glare of the tabloid press. I think that's, you know, so I salute you. You're my international woman of of the day. That is, you know, a no mean feat to be now living such a sort of life of compassion yourself. That says wonderful things about you and not very good things about them.
Well, it's again, it's about, you know, sort of teaching and leading by example. And I think that we have a moral responsibility as parents to pay attention and teach our kids better. And I think that takes being present. Obviously my child is too young to, you know, she doesn't have like an iPhone or an Instagram, but I still see areas where, you know, this can be instilled at a very young age, teaching compassion and kindness. And, you know, even small things, like if a friend of hers gets hurt, we have a rule before, you know, like sometimes a child's inclination can be to hide or to lie or to feel embarrassed or whatever. And our number one rule is, if someone gets hurt, even if it's your fault, you check on them first. You just go check. That's the first thing you do, is make sure the other person is okay. And I know that she's only 3.5, but I think that type of, you know, that is that trickles into the rest of their lives somehow. I want to believe that it does, at least.
It will be. You are obviously, you know, leading with your example, and it will. I'm sure that your daughter will be picking up those things subliminally and will be learning to be a gentle soul, and that's really wonderful. Really wonderful. In fact, if you want to give my 10 and 12-year-old daughters any of those tips, that would be great.
You know, I have so much compassion for you because I'm not there yet with 10 and 12 and 14 and 16. And, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, like how we parent to an infant is different than how we parent to a toddler, to a kindergartner, to a high schooler. And we're all learning. Like as parents, we have to continue learning, because just because I have, you know, I had it right then doesn't mean I have it right tomorrow, or vice versa. And it's our job to keep learning and being curious. But, you know, also on that note of moral responsibility, this is something that I do hope more public figures exercise soon. We have a moral responsibility as public figures to be kind and compassionate, but also to speak to, you know, if you're speaking to millions of people at the press of a button, please make sure that you know what you're saying, that it's truthful, that it's kind, and that it doesn't spark hatred. That's the big one that I think a lot of people who have a tremendous amount of social influence don't necessarily understand yet, is that you can do and say things in a way that sparks hatred in people too. And that is also, it is also your responsibility to do better in that area, you know? And so I try to be really conscious of, you know, even like in a fandom realm, if there are people who are like, I'd say this a lot about my plant-based followers, you know, if you want to come onto my page and talk about what you're passionate about, please do so in a way that's not, you know, disrespectful to other people and their views, and vice versa. Like, I don't want people on my page having wars with each other about different things. Otherwise, you're not welcome.
Yeah, you're creating a space that is reflective of your values.
I'm holding that space, exactly. Yeah. I'm creating that space, and I'm holding that space. And if you want to read along and follow along and participate, and you want to come into my space to do that, you need to do so in a way that's reflective of how I conduct myself, because I don't want to create a space for people to fight and to argue.
Oh, you know? Nikki, that is, well, I think that's basically the perfect message for us to end on. I'm so grateful to you for giving us your time and for being so candid and
this
true
was very candid.
True to yourself. That's good. That's no, not at all. Like it's been really lovely, because I think sometimes so many people in your position are cagey and like sort of media trained and don't say what they really feel. And I think I want to thank you for using your platform for good and for positivity, and especially on International Women's Day. That's just literally the perfect message we could give to anybody. And so thank you for your time. I really have enjoyed talking to you, getting to know you a little bit. It's been really lovely for me personally.
Thanks
as well.
For having me. I really
thank you, and thank you everybody for watching along as well.
Bye everybody.
Bye Nikki, have a good day. Bye now. Bye everybody.
See you soon. Bye.